So we just watched the video about the visual cliff paradigm, and we're starting the second part of lecture 3.1. Towards the end of the last lecture, there was a fire truck that drove by my house, so sorry about that. But anyway, we're going to talk about the second way that researchers studied depth perception and preferential looking. They used the preferential looking paradigm by placing different objects and pictures in front of the infants, and found that infants preferred to look at new or surprising objects compared to those that they were familiar with. This may be due to the fact that infants have been habituated to some of the stimuli to which they are constantly exposed. In terms of face perception, however, infants preferred to look at their mother's face compared to a female stranger's face. So in terms of objects, infants tend to prefer looking at new objects, but in terms of faces, they prefer their mother's face. The perception of motion is also something that is developed. Motion is not well perceived until around 8 weeks, but the thresholds for detecting velocity are high in newborn infants. As we age, our vision changes as well. Most older adults have poor vision, and the visual system generally deteriorates around the age of 40. The diameter of the pupil changes with aging, and older adults lose their ability to see images clearly. Since the pupil size changes, there is a reduction in the amount of light that reaches the pupil, making objects more difficult to perceive. We're now going to dive into auditory perception. In infancy, the fetus tends to respond to sounds as early as 5 months prenatally. Once they are newborns, they tend to prefer sounds that are of higher frequencies, human voices, and female voices. So they do actually like that little high-pitched baby talk squealing that oftentimes you hear people talking to them in, as annoying as that really is. The perception of location from which a sound emerges is also developed, as 6- and 7-month-olds cannot distinguish locations as well as adults. The perception of sound differences also starts early, as infants as young as 1 month can distinguish some basic speech sounds. The perception of stimulus patterns is essential for the development of language, so this process occurs quite rapidly in the first year. The ability to distinguish the time, intensity, and the frequency of sounds helps tune the system and helps allow us to recognize certain features of sounds. As we age, hearing reduces as well, as many older adults suffer from a loss of hearing sensitivity. This can be due both to physiological deterioration of the organs, as well as deterioration due to the lifelong exposure to loud sounds. There are also other changes that occur with aging. The thresholds for hearing decrease, so sounds and speech tend to need to be louder. The perception of higher frequency sounds decreases, and it becomes hard to distinguish sounds in a noisy environment. The good thing is that most adults don't experience hearing impairment before 70 to 80 years, unless there's some sort of physiological deterioration present. We'll now talk about proprioception and its importance in development. Proprioception yields information about the body's movement and the nature of the object that the body comes in encounter with. So, for example, if we're doing a twist in gymnastics, the body's proprioception gives us the spatial parameters under which we are moving. And if we're touching an object physically, then we know what the texture is and whether or not it's something that we can touch or we shouldn't touch. We receive this information from a series of receptors located in the skin, muscles, tendon, joint, and ligament capsules, and the vestibulum or inner ear. So muscle spindles are located in the muscles, and their function is to determine muscle length, velocity, and length of change. Golgi tendon organs are located in the tendons, and they're required to determine tension. Can go through this, and each of these are very functionally important because we want to make sure that we have an idea of what our body is doing. The proprioception system is functional at birth, and the onset of reflexes indicates that the proprioceptive receptors are functioning. Touch also seems to be essential in the development of infants, as premature infants respond positively to touch, and infants that are held or touched gain weight faster and spend less time in intensive care. In order to study this, researchers created a set of maternal deprivation studies with monkeys in order to determine the importance of touch.
Were taken away from the mothers. They were put in these cages with heating pads on them, and they would put a loose diaper in there. Every day you had to take these diapers out that the monkeys had to play with and put clean ones in. But as the monkeys got older, they didn't want to let go of their old diapers. The monkeys all started crying and rocking and crying and rocking. Well, it was pretty obvious as soon as you gave them the diaper, they would calm down.
I mean, again, this is absolutely terrible, but it kind of shows us the importance of touch and how the monkeys like to hold on to a physical object when they were stressed out or in order to receive some sort of comfort for themselves when they were in isolation. They also performed another really terrible experiment because it's the 70s and you're allowed to do whatever you want. But we do gain a lot of really important information about the importance of touch from these experiments, so don't be hating too hard, even though they're being really mean to the animals.
A wire mother that feeds it, and a cloth mother that doesn't. A cloth mother that Harlow thinks might provide something else, comfort and love.
Here's baby 106, weaned on a wire mother. He's going to the wire mother.
But this infant quickly runs to the cloth mother, where he will stay for the next 18 hours cuddling. In Harlow's mind, choosing nurturing over sustenance. In another experiment, Harlow creates a fearful situation. Whom does the infant turn to now?
Let's find out what his reactions to his mother are when we frighten him. He's scared, all right. And he does what any child will do in a similar situation. He was running to his mother to touch her, to drive away his fear.
Oh my god, it's so terrible. But we can see that the monkeys tend to prefer the touch of the cloth mother over the wire mother, even though the wire mother provides sustenance for the monkey, indicating that proprioceptive touch is very important in development. We're going to pause here and move on to the third part of this lecture.